a slave to your vanity.
You don't have to do this. This is madness.
You left me to clean up the mess you made.
Then I relieve you of your burden.
Hi guys, welcome back to Hound's Armor, and today we are looking at the Carny Rex flintlock pistol. But first, I have an announcement. That is that my birthday is in late February. So I'm gonna do a little something special. I would like to do a birthday Q&A video answering your questions. The video will come out on February 21st. So before then, please go down to the comment section of this video and ask some questions. I will answer pretty much any question, and if you answer a question and it doesn't end up in the video, it's probably because it was a little too personal or someone already asked it. That being said, please get your questions in by like February the 18th so I have time to, you know, shoot and edit the video. So, this thing. This thing. This is another one like the flak where the moment I saw the prototype for it on Facebook, I went, "Sir, I need the files and I need 20. Now, tomorrow." And you know, a couple months later now I have 2, working on a second pair. I'm going to make so many pairs of these because they are so ridiculously fun. So what is it? For those of you who don't know, this is a catapult system similar to the Wasteland Ranger by Worker a few years ago, where you have a rubber band powered sled thing that pushes into the back of a projectile to propel it. This blaster also has a functional flintlock mechanism on it, so that when you fire, it does that, which is just fun. The fact that you have to pull out the ramrod to prime it, and then if you're using elite darts to tamp the dart down into the little guide for that, and you can function the flux mechanism, is just so much fun. You do not have to operate the lock mechanism here to fire the blaster. So if you're running this in a war or something like that, you're more than capable of just priming, throwing in a dart and firing, and just cutting down your functions like that. This one is done up with the way that some of the sample images on his Etsy shop, on Carny Rex's Etsy shop, are done with the extra orange bits on it, but I personally prefer this aesthetic that's mostly gray for this pair. I'm going to make a very brightly colored pair with my dark red filament stocks, which will probably be my more public war pair, but I for once wanted to go with the realistic look, and that's simply because flintlock firearms are very commonly viewed as antiques, and we don't see them much these days, and so there's a little bit less of a trigger warning with them, and I wanted a good cosplay and LARP pair, so I made these. I also have plans to edit these files and put in some engraving patterns so I can have a really pretty, like pristine, elegant pair, and so many more. I want a rainbow pair. I want a pair like this with darker handles. So many. I want a bin that's just flintlock, and I just walk around and yes, ideas. So before I go on an even longer ramble, let's talk about the build. The build on this blaster isn't terrible, but it is on the harder end of things, closer to my experience with the Magpie and farther away from my experience with things like the Hyper and the Spamp. And that's simply because this is a completely 3D printed blaster with some complex mechanisms in it. The stock itself is pretty solid and simple to put together. However, it does need a little bit of work. This isn't design work, this is work on the builder's end, because you end up with some very harsh seams coming through your grip mostly. You can see on this grip here, I've got some elephant footing and some gappage, and I just noticed that those seams there and on the other side tend to be high spots with sharper edges, as well as just all the little corners and bits around the grip. And a really easy way to fix that is just take some 80 grit or 100 grit sandpaper and just spend 5, maybe 10 minutes sanding your stock and grip just to smooth out and soften those edges so they don't cut into your hand when you grab them. Other than that, the stock goes together really nicely. I did put a couple dabs of super glue on the ramrod holders just to make that a little bit more solid. And this build doesn't get hard until you start working on the internals. That's because it not only has the dart launching mechanism, but this blaster also has a fully functioning, historically accurate lock mechanism with all of the tumblers and springs and whatnot that go into that. So it's a little finicky to get together, but it's really not that bad to get working. Overall, not a bad build. And a really good feature that I like, please excuse on this one, the unprinted section of the stock, I ran out of filament, is the feature that is the removable orange cap. Now I know originally Carny Rex just suggested you do a filament swap on your barrel or get a little bit of orange tape to put around the top, but he designed this little muzzle cap that gives it a nice, slightly cartoony flare on the top that honestly makes the switch between a LARP blaster or a cosplay blaster to a war blaster just that fast that I just did it. It's a really nice little feature that I will probably end up storing all of these blasters without the caps on and just have a big bag of these caps that I slap on when I take 1 or 2 to a war. Now, I have one complaint about the build, and that is in the way the hammer is constructed. If you follow the instructions on Carny Rex's YouTube video, which is a great build video, I'll put the link down in the description below, as well as links to the files and everything. The hammer and tumbler system chunk of the mechanism is 3 parts held together by this screw. Doesn't quite work. There's a lot of play here. If you see, the tumbler is fully forward and there is about 30 degrees, maybe even 40 degrees of play in the hammer before we even start to prime the blaster to the half-cock notch. That to me ended up giving a very spongy, loose, kind of icky feel to the hammer. So I looked for a simple way to change that, which I implemented on my second one here, which has a very nice, crisp hammer action. So let me jump down to my work table again and show you what that change is. So how to crispen up the hammer on this blaster. Now I'm rebuilding this blaster to match this one as I'm doing this, and that's the effect we're working to get with that nice, crisp release. And it's pretty simple to get. Let me show you. So you originally have 3 pieces. You have this lock tumbler pin, you have the lock tumbler, and your hammer. And effectively, we are going to make them one piece. Now, I already did this previously by taking the tumbler and the tumbler pin and just putting a little bit of super glue in there to hold them together tight. Now I'm going So I would glue the tumbler and tumbler pin first before assembling this, so it's a little less glue to get stuck later. So with that functioning, we now need to attach our hammer, and now nominally, this screw squeezing everything together is enough, and frankly, it's a 3D printed screw. You're not going to get a lot of torque out of it. And making sure that this is in the forward position. When you set this on, there is that much wiggle in the piece. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to move this to half cock. Just check that I have this alignment right so that it's down there. Now I'm going to move it to half cock, so I have a little bit of space to move. And I'm going to try to force this forward ever so slightly so it jams in there. And then I'm going to take my super glue and just put ever so little on that edge between the tumbler pin and the hammer. Now what this means is once you do it, you cannot take off your hammer, but it's going to give you a much crisper, better feeling, better looking action on your hammer. One last thing, and it is this access screw. At this point, you've kind of committed to destroying your hammer or your tumbler when you take this thing apart. If you take this thing apart, so I don't see any harm in going ahead and adding some glue to this guy to just reinforce that joint a little bit more. And all you're really doing then is committing to, if you have to build a new lock, you are committing to printing a new lock plate. Like I said, this thing is completely functional if you don't do this, but if you want a little bit crisper of an action, I would highly suggest the application of a little super glue. So I think I've made my point that the Carny Rex flintlock is a great blaster. This is one of those blasters that it is a good blaster for all the reasons that I like to say a blaster is good. It's fun, it works, it's a good build, and it makes you smile. Now that of course brings up the question is of, this is a pretty low power blaster. How do you use it in a war? Now I can think of 3 ways. The first way is like this, with as many as you have, blasting and running because you don't have a lot of range. This would, to me, eventually look like having a belt with a bunch of dump pouches, or a bunch with the belt clip on them, where I am just taking a shot and putting away and drawing a new one as I take a shot and put away and draw a new one, and you just have a bunch. You can just run 2, run in, take your 2 shots, probably get tagged, reload on your way back to spawn. Alternatively, you can drop 1 and run 1. Especially if you keep the ramrod in your hand, it's not too bad of a reload time, especially when you look at things like other single shot pistols. So I think this is a perfectly good way too. The third way is my favorite way, and that is with 1 pistol in your offhand and a sword, because sword and pistol is a good combo. I've run something like this before with a good foam sword and a Sweet Revenge, which was a blast. I jokingly called it my British officer's loadout because I'm a history nerd, and something about a saber and a good Webley revolver is just fun and goofy. And I walked around. That was a game I walked all the way to the enemy's spawn point without firing a dart, without getting tagged. That was a fun one. And that's the kind of fun I like to have at wars. I like to be goofy and on occasion and run things. I like to be serious too, but sword and flintlock pistol is definitely something I'm going to be running very often. Of course, not this sword. This is a cosplay sword, not a foam sword for wars, but makes a good complement to a great blaster. Hi guys, I hope you liked that video. Please go down to the comment section and leave your questions for the Q&A. Again, that video will go up on the 21st of February, so please get your questions in soon. Also, while you're down there, hit that subscribe button and leave a like on the video if you liked it. And share this video with everyone you think would be interested in it. This is kind of the first video I'm doing that kind of bridges the gap and covers something that's useful not just for Nerf wars, but also for LARPs and even cosplay. So please share this video around. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time.